we're back to making more shows! So welcome back to another episode of Jessica Jones Reviews. I know I am super behind on this. Chances are most of you have probably already seen the entire series yet. Surprisingly, I have not, because I've been waiting until I had time to make these videos again. Now I do, so we're going to make some more. So now we're going to talk about episode 4, aka 99 Friends. Okay. Now, this episode is largely about Jessica Jones trying to figure out who is the one stalking her, who's the one taking pictures of her and giving them to Kilgrave. This one, I like this episode. I think it's a very good episode. I think it was the episode that really kind of sold me on this series. And there's a few key reasons why, and I'll go into that, but let me give a synopsis first and just get it over with. Meanwhile, while she's trying to track down who is the one stalking her, the cop from the last episode, who turns out is actually Nuke, who's a very obscure comic book character. I did not know this until, like, I looked at an article and they pointed out. I was like, oh yeah, I can kind of see it. So that's another really cool, like, little... I love how shows like this can get, like, just very obscure comic book characters and give them the spotlight. I think it's a very cool thing. I love that the shows are doing that now. And it makes it a lot of fun. Like, it's fun, like, seeing Nuke in a TV show, like, or Hellcat, or, like, characters even I don't really know all that much. So that's cool, but meanwhile, anyway, he feels awful about what happened, and he still thinks he killed, I'm just gonna call her Hellcat. Jess, that's her name is. No, not Jess. Trish. Thinks she killed Trish, so he panically runs back to her apartment, but thankfully Jessica happens to be there at the time and kind of gives her back up and reveals, like, oh, she's not dead, you're not a murderer, everything's okay. Nuke is... not surprisingly, a little confused and very conflicted, and feels awful about what happened. But meanwhile, Trish, who's still very scarred, knows very well that he did this under Kilgrave's control, is still insanely paranoid and terrified of this man because he might do it again. This is another, I think... and this is something that a lot of people point out too. I think this show works brilliantly as a metaphor for abusive relationships. And this is another very clever, very ballsy aspect of this show, and one that's explored more so in the fact that even though if we know that they weren't entirely under control, we still have a tendency to blame the victim for whatever happened. I mean, granted, this may be me stretching it a little bit, but it's kind of hard to see, like, she's blaming the victim for what happened. Or at least initially. She eventually comes around as Nuke kind of continues to try to, like, just apologize to Trish. He kind of just appeals to her, and he eventually wins her over, and they have this great scene together where, like, he's sitting outside the door because Trish doesn't trust him, obviously, enough to let him in. But they're still talking. They're still talking, like, between the door, and he's telling the story about... how, like, when he was a kid, he played with G.I. Joes, and all his G.I. Joes melted when he tried to, like, he had it sent on a mission to the Barbie's dream house to save the Barbie from a burning building, but he actually lit the building on fire. And she goes, you actually lit the Barbie's house on fire? He goes, that was committed to the scenario. Very likable character. I like him so far. We'll see how he goes in the later episodes. I know he has a bit of a more shining role in the next episode, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But anyway, they have this really nice moment where she just kind of goes like, look, I know it wasn't your fault. I know that what happened, like, I know what Kilgrave does to people, and I know that it's beyond your control. But at the same time, she still feels scared, and that's something she has to work through too. And I thought that all that was very, very cleverly done. And I also like that, and it's another very important factor that I think is explored more as the series goes on, is that Nuke also heavily blames himself for what happened. And this is a very important part, and it's something that's not addressed often enough when it comes to talking about abusive relationships, is the fact that the victims often do blame themselves because they feel like they were too weak, that they were too... that they should have been able to do more, that they should have been able to stop them, or be able to resist the temptation, not the temptation, the influence, but they couldn't, and they feel horrible about it because it makes them do these horrible things that they would never ordinarily do. That's all very clever, and that's driven home later in the episode when Hogarth, which every time I say that name, I just think about the frickin' U.S. agent in Iron Giant just going to Hogarth. What kind of name was Hogarth? Sorry, random tangent. But anyway, Hogarth calls Jessica in for two reasons. One, apparently her soon-to-be ex-wife is making the divorce difficult because, quite frankly, Hogarth's kind of a heartless bitch, and she's at least, like, seems legitimately traumatized and trying to save it, although doing it by, quite frankly, kind of creepy methods. But at the same time, it's hard to blame her. These are all very sympathetic characters. I really like that. It's like it's hard not to see where any one of these characters are coming from so far. Granted, we're only 4 episodes in, so we'll see how that goes on for the next 9. We got a while to go. But anywho, so anyway, so while that's going on with Nuke and Trish, Jessica and Hogarth has collected all these people who claim that they've been influenced by Kilgrave. Some of them actually have, and others are obviously just making up bullshit to get away with, other crimes they've committed. This is also a very well done scene. It kind of helps drive home the point I was talking about before about victims who blame themselves, because when you're watching this montage of people like making these confessions, you can obviously tell who actually has been influenced by Kilgrave and who hasn't, just based on how traumatized they look. Because people that actually have been influenced by Kilgrave look like they've been through hell. They look like people who have done these things that who just been through shit and have just been fucked up by this person. That's another very good way of just showing just kind of a monster this person is and how invasive his power sets are. That's what I'm looking for. They look like they've just been invaded. They look like they've just been, like, everything they believed has been perverted. It looks like they've been violated. That's what I'm looking for. Violating. They just feel dirty and disgusting. Like, how could this man do this to me? It's not necessarily all through sex, which I like that too. It works for the metaphor. But one woman's story is like, I couldn't stop smiling because he wouldn't let me. Or one woman was like, he wanted me to play him music until I fucked up, and then he screwed up my hand. And even like small stuff, like one guy's like, hey, maybe give him his jacket, the asshole. But even then, like, it's a nice way of saying that no matter how big or small these influences are, they still fuck you up. No matter if it's a short time or a long time, they still really fuck you over. And that carries over to another really good idea that they had in this episode. I love this idea. And again, it's really ballsy for a show like this to do this. And I can't think of any other superhero movie or TV show that's done this, is where, like, towards the end, the victims kind of form a support group for how they've been dealing with how they've dealt with it or what had happened to them and how they're dealing with it and, like, the huge consequences they have. Granted, one of these stories kind of helps springboard Jessica into finding out who actually is taking the pictures, and that's a nice little surprise. But while I'm realizing how busy this episode is the more I talk about it. Meanwhile, while that's going on, another woman has come to Jessica Jones asking him to take pictures of her cheating husband, who she believes is cheating. But it turns out, and this leads to a nice finale, that they're not cheating. It's all a ploy because apparently this woman just hates superpowered people because she blames all of them for the invasion of New York and the Avengers movie. And she wants to kill them all. So she tries to lure Jessica Jones in to kill her. Yeah, that without Kilgrave's influence. Jessica thinks it's Kilgrave's influence, but it's not. She's just psycho. I know I keep saying I'm sorry. What I liked about that moment though is like when Jessica figures out what's going on, she confronts them, and then of course she stops them from killing her. Like, of course it's just psycho bitch, and she just really just lets out her frustration. It's like, you think you know pain, you think you know frustration. It's like, well, you need to bottle that shit up and deal with it like the rest of us. And she just doing this while just tearing apart this room. And I think, again, that's a really good point of just how much damage shit like this does to people. Like, no matter how strong of a person you are, shit like this will fuck you up. And I love the show is very fearlessly going into that territory. And from what I've read a lot of articles, apparently it's very accurate. And I love that it's taking that risk. It's taking that chance. It is ballsy and it is daring. I love it. Another thing I really like about this is, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, so I'm not going to go too much into it, is I really like how Kilgrave, much more than the Kingpin, I think, his influence feels like it's everywhere. Like it's in everyone's heads, and it just makes him feel that much more invasive and that much more perverse. Because like even in the beginning of the episode, it starts with Trish making a public apology to him on the radio, so that way he won't send more people to try to kill her. Like he even like mind wants a little girl to tell Jessica Jones, give Jessica a message, and you feel like he could be anywhere. You feel like it could be anyone. I mean, that was kind of true in Daredevil too, and I'm not dissing that because it did very well, but at the same time, whenever it was a Kingpin guy, it was pretty obvious it was a Kingpin henchman. Like, this case, like, no, it could literally be anyone. And I really love that idea for a villain. And it's just a really good use of the Purple Man's power set. And I even like how Hogarth is kind of envious of his power set. Like, he says, like, he could be doing so much more with that, but he's wasting his time on silly things like this. So, which makes you wonder if they're leading Hogarth to be a villain. I don't know where they're going with that yet. But, as for me, that just gives the villain so much more of a presence, even when he's not on screen, and that is a very excellent thing to do. It's amazing how much better the Marvel villains are in the TV shows than they are in the fucking movies. Marvel movies really need to do a better job with their villains, but that's a whole other topic. And it makes me excited for what they're going to do with other TV shows. Like, I want to know what they're going to do with Iron Fist or Luke Cage. Like, what villains are they going to bring to those? What are they going to do with those villains? I can't wait. It's going to be great, I hope. And we're probably going to review those episodes, those series too. But I'm going to wrap this up because my throat's giving out. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of great stuff in here. There's a lot of great ideas, and this is kind of what's selling me in the show, and the metaphor it's obviously going for. And, yeah, I'm excited to see what's next. I think I've kind of said everything I can really think of to say. I almost forgot to talk about the big twist at the end. So, spoiler, obviously, but at this point, you've probably seen it. So, obviously, the big twist at the end is that the main stalker person is Malcolm, the drug addict who lives next door. So it's like, okay, and, like, that's curious. Like, it's at this point, it's been played very much for laughs. So, it's like, we'll see in future episodes if they try to develop him a bit more. Let's see how they kind of go into that. So far, aside from the weird, like, brother-sister incest couple on the upper floor, like, the show's done a very good job of, like, really broadening its character set and really giving everyone a personality and giving everyone depth to a certain extent. So far, again, only 4 episodes in, so we'll see whether they deliver on that or whether it falls flat on its face. So, yeah, I really like this episode. I can't wait to see what they do in the next one. So let's just stop talking and get right to it. Bye, guys.